Schedule the school board meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on our agenda is an exciting one. It's the signing of the Newmarket Support Staff Association contract.
And while you're moving around, Gary, I did want to just take a minute to thank the leadership of the NSSA for the incredibly positive relationship we forged and the great work we did on this contract. District is pleased. I know you guys are as well. Congratulations on a great contract.
Thank you. Does it matter where we go? Should I just go? Okay. Sorry, I didn't bring my glasses.
Yeah, I know, me too.
This is exciting TV.
Drama.
Who will sign
You
last?
gonna spell her name correctly? Let's go.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll sign copy.
Yes, so we'll have a signed copy, and we'll get you copies, but it'll be on the website tomorrow.
Okay.
Wonderful. And again, congratulations on a great contract, and I appreciate all the work you done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, we have board comments and committee updates. Are there any comments? Any committee updates?
I had the opportunity to attend the Unified Arts Night at the elementary school, and it's just phenomenal. With not only with the students presenting, but also with the teachers that organized and done. And there's this cool collaboration between the music teacher and the phys ed teacher with drum and physical fitness. So it's actually really cool. So I just want to congratulate them and thank them.
That actually reminds me, if anyone gets a chance to go behind the elementary school, there's this awesome display of these sort of tie-dyed flags that have all different wishes from kids on them, and it's pretty amazing to see. My wife and I and the dog spent probably about 10 minutes walking around those, looking at them, so they're pretty fantastic. Anyone else have anything? Any updates? No?
CIP committee, look like, so the
Sure.
CIP committee met to talk about next year's budget, like even though this one was just passed, but trying to like get away from like multiple back-to-back-to-back meetings, week to week to week in August. And we're gonna meet again next week to sort of map out like how we're gonna talk to both town and school over the course of the next several months.
Great. All right, on to reports. First item is a student representative report. Lila?
Alrighty. The Newmarket Improv Club cordially invites you to their first show of the year. They will be performing in the high school cafetorium from 7 to 9 on Friday, May 5th, so mark your calendars. It's an audience participation event I guarantee you won't forget. Also on May 5th is the National Honor Society's annual Parents' Night Off, an old Newmarket tradition that they are reviving for the first time since COVID. From 5 to 8 on May 5th, parents are invited to drop off their children at the high school to enjoy a myriad of fun crafts and games while they take a few hours to themselves. The suggested donation for this babysitting service is $15 for the night, and all proceeds will go to funding the National Honor Society. If you are interested, a registration form will be made available through email and on the National Honor Society Facebook page sometime next week. In athletics news, a huge congratulations is in order for our girls track and field team who came in first at their Sanborn meet. Special congratulations to Alana Hagan, Allison Burke, Amelia Rabb, Holly Furman, Lena Nicholson, Tyler Napolitano, and our girls 4x4 and 4x1 relay teams who all placed first in their respective events. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. You can see them compete again in Sanborn this Saturday at 10 a.m. Our varsity baseball team is also doing very well. Their next game is 4:30 tomorrow at home. And finally, wish our varsity softball team good luck as they will be playing against Franklin today at 7 o'clock. That's all for me. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Lola. And Todd, do you have anything? Superintendent report?
Yes, I do. And actually, before I do, Lola, not that you're thinking about it, but how many days are left for seniors?
26.
Oh, okay.
Who's counting, right?
Not me.
She had that ready to go, didn't she? Actually, I have a number of things I wanted to report on tonight, but I wanted to start with introducing a new staff member for our district. Sean, you want to come on up to the mic? As I told you last meeting, we've gone through a hiring process. The Newmarket Elementary School assistant principal position went through a very rigorous process, and we're very pleased to bring forth Jessica Spalding, who is the nominee that we're presenting to you tonight. Go ahead, Sean, introduce.
Hi, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Jessica Spalding. As Todd had mentioned just a few moments ago, we had a really great process of going through candidates. Jessica came up heads and heels above everyone in our pool. Jessica is currently serving her second year as principal at the Ella Lewis School up in Steuben, Maine. And go look that up. That's up by Ellsworth, so it's away. She has over 13 years of classroom experience in 5th, 6th, and 8th grade teaching language arts and social studies, yes. Correct, Jessica? Yep. She is also served 3 years as a literacy specialist. That is something that we were looking for in this candidate as well, as we're pushing a big update for our literacy curriculum instruction at the elementary school, starting now, but working into next year and the years to come. She, in that position, she oversaw the Title I funding and grants, the ESSA grants as well, and in that, as a literacy coach and specialist, she also helped staff get familiar with how to analyze and use data to inform their instruction in the classroom setting, which is something that we are also delving deep into as well. She is a certified building administrator, a reading specialist, and also a K-8 classroom teacher. She got her master's degree in literacy, master's in arts of literacy at the University of Southern Maine, and her bachelor's at the University of Hartford in marketing and communication. So I'm very pleased. We're very excited to have her. The staff overwhelmingly really enjoyed meeting Jessica, and we're happy to have her on board. Jessica.
Thank you.
Jessica, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, so I'm super excited to join Newmarket. Really looking forward to many of my teaching positions have been in larger districts with multiple SAUs, all feeding into middle school and high school. So I'm looking forward to really working with a team. A lot of it's my current job as administrator. Even though I have principals counterparts in other buildings, we don't have that opportunity because of time to really work together. So I'm really looking forward to working with a team of principal, assistant principals, teachers, paraprofessionals to continue to grow the data at Newmarket and the excitement. I got to take a great tour of the school. Facility is beautiful. I saw the flags out back. They were great, fantastic. So I'm looking forward to, lending anything that I can and jumping right in day one.
Great. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome to Newmarket.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, so a couple of other things I wanted to just mention. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, as I've mentioned before, we've been doing a lot of work on our Vision of a Graduate work with regards to NEASC. And I'm here to report that we are at a place where we have to kind of retool our plan to bring closure to the process. And I say that because I had made a public commitment, and I'm publicly stating that we're not going to be able to meet the May deadline to have a draft ready to put in front of the town. but it's for very good reasons. What we have discovered is there's a lot of people who want to have input in this, and we wanted to pump our brakes, slow it down, and make sure we did that work before we said, okay, here's the draft. So just a couple of just really good things that have happened in this process. We obviously, you know, we had a very successful community event that really started some discussion about what it should be. So we got some input that was different than what staff had identified, but it was really valuable input. We've had similar events with our elementary school staff. We have done a follow-up event with our high school, middle school staff. They have drafts of surveys ready to go out to the community again to kind of take more input, as well as students. And there's planned to have a student forum very shortly to get student input. Our hope is, while I know I said May, our hope is to be ready to have a draft in August so that we can still start the school year with it, but would have a community event in September to share it with everybody, with the idea of bringing it to the board shortly after that to be able to say, here it is. While normally a delay in process is not something we celebrate, but I have to say in this case, because it's the desire to be more thoughtful, and I've been working very closely with the committee that's been doing it, and the level of thought that they're putting in this is really impressive. And I finally said to them, look, I know I made this public commitment to a May date, and you guys are telling me you need more time. Well, I'm going to retract what I said, not because I don't think they're doing great work, but I'm envisioning an August-September timeline as opposed to a May-September timeline. So that's my mea culpa, but I'm very proud of the work our staff are doing. I'm happy to take questions on that if anybody has any.
Do you feel it impacting any other decisions that kind of would spread off of it?
Well, actually, one other thing which has been very exciting, we are starting a professional evaluation committee, and one of the things we launched was a process called Profile of an Educator, which is kind of aligning it with the vision of a graduate, because we realize how important it is to have all of our systems sort of lined up, because you can get out ahead of yourself and then say, okay, follow along, or you can take the time to line things up. The work that Patty is doing with staff around creating a profile of an educator, which will hopefully reinvigorate our evaluation model, is really important. And I think we want to make sure those things are in sync with each other. So that's been a really a very exciting, positive thing. On March 29th, Stephanie Cleary did a presentation she's been one of the leaders of the NEASC work, did a presentation with high school, middle school staff that was just unbelievable, and it just led to a lot of really, really good, rigorous conversations about what do we need to do and what do we need to be. And so, again, Andy and I kind of looked at each other like, do we push ahead or do we acknowledge that we just need a little more time? But I'm very confident that we will have a really good product that the community will buy into, and it will reflect what people have been telling us. We have hundreds and hundreds of pages of input that we've taken, and just the process of culling through it and making sure that it aligns together, I think, is really important.
So Todd, if I understood right, you said that one of the main reasons you're pushing it back is you're getting more input coming from more directions than you anticipated. Can you kind of, what channels is that input coming in through that we weren't anticipating? Because in the future, I'd like to make sure we've got it
Absolutely.
from the jump.
I think what has happened is, just full transparency, there has been conversation about vision of a graduate in this community for 5 years, okay? And people, many of them sort of were like, in the back of their mind, yeah, right, we're really going to do it this time. And I think what happened, we've done a couple of conversations that I think sparked something, and people like, oh, you're really talking about this? And so I think it's caused more people to say they want to have input. I was incredibly impressed at the level of dialogue at the elementary school around the vision of a graduate, because a lot of school systems kind of ignore that piece of the equation. And it was amazing. We spent like 3 hours just going through all of the thoughts, and the elementary school teachers sharing what their perspective was, and that was, I think, more impactful than I think the committee realized it was going to be. I think they thought it would be more of a rubber stampy kind of thing, and I think there were new ideas that came out. And The other component is, we have a lot of initiatives that we're trying to sort of juggle right now and wanting to make sure not to push something forward before it's ready. And something as important as this, I think that was really what it came down to. The deadline of May, I pulled it out of the air. That was mine, and I just wanted to make sure that something happened. And so I feel confident that a lot of great work has happened. I just don't think it makes sense to try to do an event in May if we really don't have something near to final to share. So that would be in the September time window. Okay?
Sounds
Awesome.
good.
All right, well, thank you, I appreciate that. A couple of other things I wanted to mention. Next episode of Newmarket School District Corner, starring our own Mr. Pine, is going to be launched on Tuesday. I think the whole episode is on an elementary school. In fact, the wonderful art display that people have mentioned is actually one of the segments that's in the show. There's a segment on the staff doing the letters training, and then there's another segment on the kindergarten parent night that's pretty cool. So, like I said, they launched on Tuesday. Let's go for, how many views do you want, Sean? 5,000? Okay, 5,000 views today.
Did,
I want an Emmy afterwards.
I heard TikTok dances really get viewership up.
I stay away from that.
Just a quick note, if you haven't had a chance to, earlier in the year, Patty Banfield, my assistant, we were talking about how boring the walls are in the outer office up in the upper floor here. And so we reached out to our art teachers in the district and said, hey, can you help us out and decorate our, so we've had 3 different art displays up there. Started the year with a high school display. We had elementary school during the winter months, and then a middle school display was just put up today. So if you, it's funny, I left to do a meeting at 11 o'clock and there was nothing on the walls, and when I came in I was like blown away by how much it popped. So it's really exciting. So check it out if you haven't had a chance to. And then really the last thing I wanted to mention, but we'll talk about it, I'm sure, through the meeting. I just want to remind people that we made the decision last time to move the board meetings to another location. We've been working with Mr. Riley, who's here tonight, thank you, as well as Tim Kremen to make sure we can do it. So we're ready to go with our next meeting, May 4th at 5 o'clock at the junior senior high cafetorium. So that will be our first foray into taking our show on the road, but I'm excited by that. And actually, presumably we'll have our May 18th meeting there as well, and Mr. Corman promises me that our top 10 will be invited to that meeting, so I'll have a chance to do that. So, that's all I have.
Great, thank you very much. We have 3 presentations tonight. The first up by someone who didn't get a chance to come to our last meeting. Janet Mellon.
Come on, get with the program.
Sorry, it's been a long day. I've been looking at a lot of data. I'm a little punchy.
Just let it all hang out. Just let it
Yeah.
go.
I don't think we want to go there. But thank you very much for having me here tonight. As we've done in the past, we're going to present our quarterly financials for the quarter ended March 31st. A preview of coming attractions. We hope to do like we did last year and bring to you an interim financials sometime in May, because the final financials are usually not completed until after our auditors have done their work, and that can be in the summer. So to kind of give you an idea of where we're coming into the year, we should have a little bit better predictive value in another month or so. So quarter 3, some of the things that I wanted to highlight, the report is up in the board drive, but one of the things I wanted to highlight is that we have concluded our hiring bonus program. If you remember, we were offering a $1,000 bonus for paraprofessionals and facilities technicians. It was a successful program. We were able to fill a lot of positions. We didn't fully staff the paraprofessional tranche, but we did get the facilities staff filled. The final price tag on that, I think I'd estimated about the max was going to be around $58,000. It came in at $48,460. The program's concluded because we'd written into it that they had to work for 3 months before they could get the bonus, and there's not 3 months left. So I just wanted to report back with you on that. Utility costs, had been a source of, a little bit of concern as we were going through this year. We did have a favorable, some weather conditions that were a little milder this year. So while I am expecting, as I had predicted, it's still a negative variance, I do not feel that the variance is going to be material in nature this year, which is good news for all of us. Food service, a quick blurb about that. We have a couple of exciting things that have happened there. First of all, we have just been awarded another supply chain assistance grant in the amount of $25,000. We had just finished up the previous tranche, and now we're ready to start with that next funding. So that's really exciting. That grant can be used for minimally processed foods such as milk, dairy products, vegetables, that kind of thing. So lots of fresh options we can offer to our kids. We are extremely grateful for that assistance, and we thank our staff, our Fresh Pick staff, for partnering with us, because they have to provide us with a certain level of documentation in order to, meet that. So they put that extra effort in as well. So that's great. Our smoothie program up and running. We got our smoothie machine. I've heard
Which is
that
the only reason we're having the next meeting at the
Right,
school, you realize,
right.
right? The smoothie
Right.
machine.
I've heard that the response from students has actually been really positive and really favorable. They've been able to offer, in the morning, we budgeted a small amount to do like free trials. We haven't needed it because the kids have just gravitated to it in the morning. So that's a really great way to get some quick nutrition in the morning, and we're finding that they're taking advantage of that opportunity. The other exciting thing, well, I think it's exciting, our participation in the food service program. Of course, during COVID, it was much higher, and it has dropped down. But I'm happy to report that even though we have a little bit lower student enrollment, we are having overall higher participation in our food service program than we did pre-COVID. So not markedly so, but that's, still, maybe it's due to the fact that the kids got to try some of the opportunities while we were getting the free meals, but whatever the reason, it's great to see the kids taking advantage of the healthy, nutritious meals during the school day at school. So, moving along, revenues, kind of the highlights there. I talked about the dairy grant. We got that. We were approved for that. Our local revenues this year, we had anticipated that we were going to have roughly revenues in the same ballpark as we did pre-COVID, but due to higher participation and due to the higher meal prices that we were able to put in place, at the end of Q3, we've already exceeded our estimated revenue for food service. So while we don't anticipate that we're going to have a overwhelming profit in our net surplus in that fund, that's all leading towards a good positive outcome, a solid outcome at the end of the year. So really good things happening there. Interest rates in our bank accounts have been another pleasant surprise, right? I think we budgeted $3,000 in interest, and we're 350% above that. So it's not a windfall of money, but we'll take anything we can get in that regard. State revenues, nothing too much new there. The extraordinary needs, we benefited from an extraordinary needs grant of 29 grand. It's not going to repeat next year. We had the one-time New Hampshire retirement revenue. That, unless it's legislatively memorialized, will not repeat next year. So that kind of plays, we've talked about how that kind of makes it look like an increase of the tax burden on local taxpayers, but it's not really due to anything we're doing here at the district. It's just a one-time spike in revenues that goes away, and it makes it optically look a little higher. Our SAFE grant, and you'll hear a little bit more about this when Mr. Riley comes up. We are well underway. We got three projects, two of the same kind, elementary and middle, and then we have an integrated security system award. So he'll give you updates on when the timing of those and the magnitude of that. We will be bringing a recommendation to the board tonight, later on in the meeting, for the integrated security system, and it's a little story with that. Federal revenues, we are still waiting to hear from the National School Lunch Program on our grant application for the equipment grant. We put in for some commercial food processors to offer some new things to students, hummus and other types of salsas and fresh soups and things. They were supposed to have announced the awards by March 31st, but we have not heard anything, so we remain optimistic about that. On a little bit of a sour note, as you know, I had applied for the Renew America Schools grant, that $80 million amount for infrastructure that had been earmarked to the federal government for schools. There was a two-part process. You had to submit a concept paper, and then they would rate your concept paper and let you know if they felt that you should follow through and complete the rest of the application. The application itself was very comprehensive, so they tried to do that to prevent people from having to go through all of that only to be denied. So we submitted. We were hoping to get the second batch of funding for our NES Windows. Our rating was assigned as discouraged to apply. I guess there were much more needy districts that had applied for that. So as we look towards 24, 25, if you can believe it, budgeting for that, we'll be coming forward with some proposals or some ways to fund the remainder of that project and trying to figure out how that fits into our capital improvement plan. We've tried for 2 different awards. We haven't gotten either. We'll continue to try, but we probably should start planning a plan B on that one. Under grants, we are still working our way through the ESSER funding. We've used some of the ESSER funding for our playground project, which again, you'll hear some more exciting news on that later. Basically, the FEMA revenues again are going to impact our end of year revenues. They were unanticipated. They actually are from last year. We didn't get them in time to take them into consideration in our financial statements, so that's going to be an additional revenue. So I do anticipate that revenues will be our primary driver of our fund balance this year, once again, unanticipated revenues that have come in. One other area in the revenues I wanted to mention has to do with special education aid. That used to be called catastrophic aid. They've changed the name, but basically if you expend more than 3.5 times the state average for a special needs student, they will reimburse you based on a formula. But there's a pot of funding, and so depending on how many applicants and how much goes into that pot, you may or may not get the percentage back that you put in for. So we usually estimate a little bit low, because the last thing we wanted to do is have a hole in our budget from revenues we don't get. This year we actually got, and it's from 21-22, so you get it retroactively. We actually wound up getting over $500,000, and we only budgeted around $300,000. So again, I think the increase in the unanticipated revenues is going to be our big story as we close our year, just as we move forward there. And again, I've attached the expenditures with some highlights and bullets to kind of show you variances and explain what those might be, both in food service and in our general fund. And then the revenues, the detail of those revenues are showing, again, with some notes about variances in that regard. And with that, once again, I've thrown a lot at you, so I'll open it up for questions.
I mean, first and foremost, thank you for all, my process. I go through your numbers and I'm highlighting things and thinking, what's this and what's that? And then I scroll to the next page and, oh, there's an explanation of what this and that was. So thank you. That makes this so easy to follow. The only question I have, so I know where food service revenue shows up. I know what we spend on food and salaries, and to the extent we are incurring or budgeting for write-offs in food service, just remind me, where does that appear?
That would actually come off of our balance sheet. What you see with revenues and expenditures is the income statement type stuff. So it doesn't reflect here. That's usually an adjustment that's made as part of our audit. That's where we end the year with revenues, expenditures. If you have a net gain, if you think of it in corporate, you'd have an net income, or you'd have
it's
a
below
loss.
the line.
Right. So and
Okay.
then that loss or that gain gets factored into where your equity. So that would typically happen, but as a predictive value, and again, don't hold me to it, we always budget for a loss in food service. So this year we planned way back in 21-22 for this year. We put $40,000 into our budget. it is unlikely that we are going to touch that expenditure budget because we had a fund balance, a positive fund balance at the end of last year. So that would just stay in our budget. It would get returned as part of our unused fund balance. The good part about the National School Lunch Program is when you end the year with a positive in your food service fund, which we did to the tune of $131,000, that does not go back to taxpayers. That stays to support your nonprofit food service program. So if we did have a deficit, we can eat away at that profit until the profit's gone without tapping the budget for the expenditures. And as part of that, the debt write-off would kind of get rolled and factored in when we talk about our fund balance.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I had a question on the one-time bonus program.
Yeah.
It was, can you just remind me what that was again? It was $1,000?
Sure, yeah, it was $1,000 for a full-time FTE employee, but it would be prorated if they were less than a full-time person. They had to have worked for 3 continuous months in the district before they were awarded that $1,000. And
Because
it was
you-
just for paraprofessionals
Okay.
and facilities techs.
So the 48,000, to me, that's 48 employees, correct?
Right,
No.
we
Or is
gave it to our existing employees as well.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's what
I'm sorry, I should have said
yeah,
that, yeah. It was like
okay,
we
'cause
brought it in.
That was confusing to me.
Sorry about
That's
that.
all right.
We brought it in as a means to, because we were in a bargaining year, we couldn't really do much for our existing employees.
Mm-hmm.
We were having so much trouble filling those roles, that what we did is we offered $1,000 to all of our
Okay.
existing, and then after 3 months of completed successful employment history, we would offer it to our new hires. So,
Okay.
yes, you are seeing our current employees in there.
Okay.
It would have been nice if we got 48.
I know, well, I knew it wasn't
Yeah.
possible, but I just, I had to ask, because it didn't make sense to
Yeah.
me, so.
But
Yeah.
there's probably a dozen, 15 new people.
Yeah, we got, actually, from the beginning of the year, just in the paraprofessionals, weren't we down like 17?
Yeah.
So we ended
And
up
I
in
was,
single
and
digits.
we were struggling in
Right.
facilities too. We were probably down 4, right? And we've done some shifts and moved some things around in facilities, but we feel like we are pretty well staffed right now. We've actually absorbed, not gonna be a huge monetary impact, but we've actually absorbed that we had put out in our food service agreement with the, in our custodial agreement with our outsourced custodians, to have 2 day porters as part of that agreement that would serve during lunches. They had such a terrible time staffing those positions that eventually we said, we renegotiated our contract, took those costs out of our contract, and we filled them ourselves. And that's been working out really well. We have 2, we have 1 at each school building. One of them is a former, a longtime Newmarket custodian, so he's very familiar with it. He just wanted to do a little bit of work during the day. It's 3 hours, but they're going to continue through the summer and help us with additional needs as we prepare for our buildings for fall. So it's kind of an all year round thing, but just 3 hours a day. So that's worked out really well, and because we've been able to do that, we've been able to kind of free up our other facilities techs that are working during the day to do different other things too. So we think we found a pretty good staffing level, and with our outsourced custodials, it seems to be working pretty well.
I had a question, on the outsourced, with the food program and the custodians, do you ever foresee this ever going back to what we had in the,
I wouldn't say no, but I will say, there is no perfect. So I'll just take food service, for example. In order to make this model work, my office had to absorb extra work because there are certain functions that legally those food service, they can't do free and reduced lunch, they can't do the year end, they can't do reconciliations, they can't do any of that stuff. So, we absorb some of that work in my office to make that model work. That said, if you have your own internal staff, we would have a full-time food service director that would offload some of the work from my office, but we would also have to pay that person, an
Right.
administrator rate, and then we would have to staff up, as we did. So
Right.
I won't say no. I would say that it's a little bit of a challenge because it's very hard to flip the switch,
Right.
because you'd have to have people waiting in order to make that shift, or
Right.
else you run the risk of running an understaffed facilities or food service program if you can't hire people.
right?
So it's almost like you would have to really be in a good, I think you'd have to have a much different labor market than we have right now.
Right, yep.
You know, you'd have to have more assurance that you could find people before we could comfortably and without a lot of angst switch it back.
And I think historically, that's what Newmarket has been able to do. It's just in the last 5 or more
Yeah.
years, that's just not been the labor market around
Right.
here.
Yeah.
And the cost of living in this area being what
Right.
it is, it's just harder to get people to take those.
Yeah, especially for those positions that aren't full day, you know,
Right.
it's hard.
Can I ask for my knowledge for the future? Do you feel like the bonus program that we had was a lesson that we should keep for the future? Like if we're in this situation again?
In my opinion, and I don't, you know, I don't want to like get all goopy or mushy, but Todd has done a fantastic job of elevating employees and making sure that employees are taken care of and really planning it out in a really thoughtful way, like the salary adjustments, that incentive bonus, doing those types of things to really keep and attract and retain the good people. I think it's really important to stay creative right now, especially right now, and we certainly have tried and endeavored to do that. In this particular case, at the first, if you'd asked me like 2 months into the program, I'd have said this isn't working at all, because we just basically we paid our existing employees, but we were not attracting any new. But I do think that negotiating that new para contract, having those new rates out there, having people see what's coming down the road for the paras, that's when we started to see a pickup in the hiring and getting people to come on with that bonus. So I think it's a whole package.
Okay.
I think it's really about looking at our benefits, looking at our salaries, making sure that we're keeping up. You know, like we had that salary analysis done, so every year we got to look at that. We got to make sure that our rates are moving up with what needs to happen, and that we don't, because if you let it sit for 3 years, then all of a sudden it's not real anymore. It's not competitive. So
Yeah, I mean, just want to thank you for the kind words, Jen, I appreciate that. But one of the things that we observed was that the incentive program brought people in to apply, but they still, if you're talking about our starting rate, you do the math on $1,000 divided by 1,000 hours of work in a year, and you're talking about $1 in difference per hour, and people were like, well, not quite good enough yet. And so I do think, you know, I'm hopeful, frankly, just the contract in and of itself that we have created will fill all of our positions. But certainly putting those two things side by side, if we had to in the future, I think we'd have a better chance of having it be more effective. It's still, it made a difference, and I think it's important to acknowledge, you know, the para educators that have been, you know, doing 1,000 different jobs during this pandemic when we're understaffed, you know, subbing. I mean, it's crazy making to be in that role and like never know from day to day, okay, where are you going to send me? What am I going to do? And they're bouncing all over the place. So, you know, doing it as a retention bonus, I think, was just to simply say thanks for doing that. And so I do appreciate the board's support of that program.
Yeah.
I really think it did make a difference in terms of morale of the staff, and then over time it'll make a difference in terms of staffing.
yeah, and I think that's the big thing, the morale. I think it really made people feel like, okay, they see us, they see how hard we're working, and the board appreciates that. And this bonus is was a way of showing it, and then to be able to go in and have such a productive bargaining session with the paras to really get some things resolved and really rectify. You know, I think we went in with a pretty competitive starting place. You know, we were all kind of on the same page, so I think that all helps.
I was wondering about our general fund. Overall, it looks like we're below expected expenditures in the general fund, which is great. But in operations, we're a tiny bit above. Are we, for the year, are we kind of done with
Yeah.
operational expenditures, do we believe? Or will that increase at all?
So one thing that you have to remember when you look at this, we put this budget together in 21-22 when we
Oh, yeah, of
only
course.
had
Yep.
one, when we didn't have all of our facilities outsourced. So part of the variance that you see in the salaries actually has been earmarked and repurposed on the contracted services, because when we budgeted, only one school was using contracted facilities. So in answer to your question, do I anticipate it's going to land about there? It's actually going to be better than that, because if you recall, we have money that we are going to be requesting requesting back from capital reserve. We have some projects that are gonna happen over break and shortly the windows and the last bit of the electrical work that we had done last year. And we have expended those against these lines, but I have not, I've only asked for, I think I did it at the end of December, I asked for what we'd spent then back from capital reserve. But at the end of this year, we're gonna also be asking capital reserve to refund some of that money because those were projects that the board had approved to come from capital reserve.
Is that strictly the repair and maintenance line, or is there another line for that?
Repairs and maintenance is one of them, and tuition is the other big variance that it has to do with two factors. It's the SST tuition that's gone up. On a good side, we have more kids taking advantage of that than we did. The prices also went up, so there's about a $50,000 hole there, but good reason. And then we also had some special education changes. We had a couple of students that moved in and out, and whenever we budget for what we know, but when people move in after we've set the budget, that's what that comes to.
But as far as the money we're going to get back from the capital reserve funds, is that strictly the repair and maintenance line, or is that?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. In this report, yes, it would be in there. So it's still gonna show a negative, just so
Sure.
you know, on the financial statements, but you're gonna see a revenue on the other
Gotcha.
side that will offset
Offset
it. So
that.
our fund balance will mesh. It's not gonna take this away.
Yeah, I see.
But the overall picture is gonna be a little more rosy.
Gotcha. Great, thank you.
Okay?
Jan, on kind of the big ticket revenue items, assessment, adequacy, I mean, everything on there seems like pretty close to 75% through the first 3 quarters of the year.
Yep.
Anything there that gives you any anxiety of,
No,
Looking at
district
the last
assessment,
quarter.
that's always 100%, so that'll come in. Other local revenue, we're actually a little bit higher in that regard, and I think I wrote down, I think that's one of the variances that maybe I didn't, it's not by a lot, but we get certain other things that we don't anticipate, that's kind of our catch-all. Adequacy aid, it's gonna be pretty close, we're actually, that'll be fine, state ed. Yeah, I don't see, obviously you're looking at FEMA, that's a positive, we didn't budget for that. Special ed aid, we're over by 343,000, that's a overage that we didn't plan for. So, yeah, and the grants, a lot of the grants, especially the ones that I call federal grants that are kind of in that group, those can be a little bit deceptive. It looks like we're under budget there, but if you remember, you don't get reimbursed for those until you expend it. So we just guess how much we're gonna spend during the year, but we're never gonna come out better or worse than whatever we actually spent there.
okay.
So
Thanks.
like I said, I think the revenues are gonna be the biggest driver this year of our fund balance.
And I may pick your brain later on investment vehicles, since your return on investment is at 2,205%. That's an impressive return for 1 year.
Well, I'd love to take credit for that, but I think probably not mine.
Bank interest rates?
Yeah.
Not entirely mine. Any other questions?
Can I ask real quick how the computer switchover is going, the program?
Oh, good question.
All right, so I think it's going fabulously well. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of data. I'm going through eye drops like crazy. But just today, and you haven't even seen it yet, so we got all our positions in, and I took my budget, which was in an Excel workbook last year, and we built the position control, and we matched. So like all of the people are in there, so once I turn that on, we can't assign a position if we don't have budget for it, which is super exciting for me. The other thing that we're going to be able to do is generate contracts right from the system. It takes the actual payroll advice, you can put like language above the salary piece and then language below, and it will generate it. So no errors, no transpositions of digits, no missteps. I got a batch of paraeducator contracts out, and again, we're probably gonna do a mail merge this year like we did in the past, but it's exciting, I actually have an output. So That's going to be a huge efficiency saver, and more than that, it just prevents errors. It just makes so much more integrity in the process. So it's going very well. It's a lot of work. Big thanks to Teresa Marvin, because the payroll piece is the weightiest part. We've literally been in that room this week 32 hours, and when we're in there, nobody's doing our jobs. So I really appreciate all the work that she's putting in on this and the thought, but we've tried to do this in a really thoughtful way. We started with building our general ledger account so it would give us the information we need, so I can report out in almost any way you can think of based on just the way we built our building blocks, and then we layer on top of that. So I feel really good about it. I think it's going to be an excellent solution for the district. It's going to be a long-term solution, and it's going to, maintaining it and keeping the integrity depends on having people that understand, how it's set up, and that's why Teresa and I are doing the training together. So we have two great minds in there. Well, hers is greater than mine, but we won't go there. But no, it's going very, very well. We are on track. They give you a green light, yellow light, red light, and we're all green. So we haven't hit any hurdles yet that we haven't been able to stay on track and keep moving. So
I brought it 'cause a few months ago. I was just up for the SAU for another reason. I was talking to Jana, and she didn't come out straight out and say this, but just the amount of extra time that she's put into getting the program up and running, and just want to thank you for that. And just if anyone's watching at home, because of this new system, they were able to not have to worry about filling a position that had been vacant up there because of the efficiency to be created. So thank you.
yeah, no, it's going to be good. We're still figuring it out, but I think on the whole, it's a really good move. And I love that we were able to use grant funding.
Yeah.
Not one penny.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have spring facility update from Mr. Riley.
As we're talking about deconversion, can I say, I miss my boss. I don't get to see her anymore. She's locked in that conference room.
We'll see you in a few months, okay?
Yes. So it is my pleasure to be able to provide updates on some exciting projects currently underway here at the Newmarket School District. Please allow me to start by thanking Mr. Todd Allen for enabling these projects. Without his input, guidance, and creating an environment of cooperation and support, I wouldn't have the opportunity to assist in making these great improvements to our schools. I'd also like to thank Andrew Corman and Sean Pine. They defined how these spaces will be used, which defines the scope of the product. They did much of the legwork, ran the committees that helped design these spaces. They kept the committees on task, which we all know can be difficult when you have different people with different views wanting different things out of the same space. Finally, I'd like to thank Jana Mellon. Without her guidance, encouragement, and financial wizardry, none of these projects would have left the planning stage. First project I'd like to discuss this evening is the new playground at Newmarket Elementary School. Much of the current playground equipment is reaching end of life, with upkeep becoming an increasing struggle. Their current playground grew organically with pieces placed where they would fit rather having an overall design. This left us with a playground that is difficult to monitor, as the preschool playground is between the basketball court and the rest of the equipment. There is also very limited open grass or pavement to allow for self-directed play. By this I mean drawing a hopscotch, 4-square board, or just running around playing tag. The playground also has a vast sea of wood chips which require maintenance and are tracked into the school and limit the use of those areas. The new design corrects these issues with the preschool playground positioned at the end of the playground near the preschool classrooms and extended pavement and grass areas. And you, of course, got in the package the designs. Really excited about this project. I think it's going to be a great improvement at the school. Very exciting there. We hope to have this work completed in early September. The delay is caused by supply chain issues related to the playground equipment. The second project I'd like to discuss is the courtyard at the Newmarket Junior-Senior High School. As I'm sure you're aware, the space is currently unutilized and best suited for the grazing of livestock. Our plan is to create an amphitheater with an outdoor classroom. As workplaces move towards a more collaborative environment where people must feel comfortable presenting their ideas to the group, public speaking skills become more important than ever. The amphitheater will provide a space where this can be learned and practiced. It will also provide a new space for drama productions and concerts. We hope to have seating for 50 to 75 people. The outdoor classroom will allow classes to be held outdoors, but still within our security envelope and without the distractions of spaces outside of the school. The design below in your programs was just approved by the committee and has been provided to a structural engineer for the design of the stairs, ramps, and seating. As flooding has been an issue in this space in the past, special attention is being paid to drainage, including permeable pavers and careful consideration to slope. I look forward to jazz concerts, poetry bombs, and small plays in this area. I realized after submitting the information to the board, I left off a few items. What tends to happen, and especially in facilities, I set up a project, capital improvement plan, right, us looking at, and then it's a few months before that project actually starts. So it sort of slips off my radar. I put these things on my calendar, so when they need to be picked up again, I'm notified and I hit them. So I set up we did the bid award for the people to come in and help us with the assessment of our facilities. But they can't come in for a few months, so I set that on my calendar. Okay, what's the next challenge we're attacking? So I didn't dig deep enough in my calendar to see all of these things we have going. So some of the things, the capital site assessment is currently scheduled to begin immediately after the July 4th holiday. I've been in communications with them. I'm trying to creep it up a little earlier because I want to get this moving, but that's set and ready to go. This summer, we'll be removing the carpet from the last 3 classrooms containing carpet at NES, which is very exciting. It's a pain to clean, it causes allergies, it's old and disheveled, so that's an exciting. We're replacing windows at NES this summer. I believe we're doing 35 windows this summer at NES.
Boy, hand over flame, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, so we're really excited about that. And then the window film project we've discussed will be done next week. They'll be coming in, finishing what they started at the elementary school and completing the high school all next week. Thank you for allowing me time to brag about these improvements we're making to our district. I may be the only one presenting these improvements, but I'm not the only one responsible. These projects would not be possible without the great team we have here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave,
what
can
do
you,
got?
just so I can wrap my head around it, the drawing of at the junior, senior high school, which side of this is the South Main Street side and which side is the rec center side?
See, I look at it as which side is the event hallway side, and that's where the stage will be.
So the event hallway says bottom right, so if you went into a basketball game, and you're looking at the bottom right right by the stairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I have no idea where that is in relation to Main Street. Well, let me see, that way,
Yeah.
I was more
I guess I
in that sense
could-
of direction, so I'm not.
yeah, I guess I could figure it out, but,
We've had a lot of input from our librarian, our art teachers, drama department, a lot of people involved in this. Very excited about this project. This is something that's needed to be done for a long time, and yeah, this is a good one.
yeah,
I have a
actually,
question.
the library windows are by the green spot there, so yeah.
On the courtyard, is that something that will also be accessible to the community to rent out, as is
Sure,
the?
once it's complete, I'd love to be able to have other things in that little amphitheater out there. It's really going to be an exciting space.
Yeah, it's cool, I love it.
I'm excited to hear about the permeable pavers. That was actually going to be my question. But I am curious about the green blocks. Are we going to have any kind of natural vegetation in case we do have goats that we still want to feed? Or
I generally have a real problem with gardens at schools because when are we in school? The winter. Growing season happens and you wind up with a lovely bed of weeds because no one's coming in and maintaining them. So I've been pushing very hard for low maintenance space. We are going to do green space out there. My other concern, we were discussing trees and that sort of thing. Anything like that wants to clog the permeable pavers, and then, 10 years down the road, you've got drainage issues because you've got
Roots.
silt and things building up in this space. Whenever I do a project, I really like to think, this school's going to be here. It's been there for 100 years, almost. It's going to be there for another 100 years. So I really like to plan maintenance as minimal as possible out in the future. So those green blocks are intended to be green space, but they're going to be as low maintenance as we can have. Something that's not dropping leaves out there. Another problem is any work we do out there, you have to haul it through the school. So right now we're pushing a lawnmower down the hallways. So I'm trying to minimize.
Is that a
that
riding
sort of
mower?
thing
You said it's
also.
push.
No, we actually have an electric push mower, but again, 3 goats would solve the problem much easier.
There you go.
I really appreciate that long-term outlook, right? Because it would be great to have like a tree there within 50 years. Like, oh, sorry, in like 50 years.
Gene's gonna get upset with us.
Some school board's gonna be like, who the heck put a
Yeah,
tree
exactly,
in this
right?
thing?
Who did this?
This is just a very random question with the playground. You're doing away with wood chips. What is gonna be?
There are going to be wood chips.
Okay.
Wood chips are only required in the fall zones around the equipment.
Uh,
And right now, we have wood chips
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
everywhere. It is a sea of wood chips.
Okay.
And,
So it'll be a limited, but
There will be
present
wood chips.
Okay, there will be.
you know,
Thank you.
my primary concern is the health and safety of our staff and learners, so I would, and Primex has looked at this. I'm not taking on that liability, I'm sharing that liability. We're doing everything to make this space as safe as possible.
It's a $1 billion idea for someone who can replace wood chips in playgrounds for kids.
Have you ever seen
This doesn't
like the
match.
pile they drop off right before school starts?
It's impressive.
It's incredible.
They end up in pockets. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, which is-
They come home with them, kids.
I would love to see how deep those chips go, because I bet you they're 3 feet deep.
Now, there are other solutions for that, but they all have, right, there's the crushed rubber, right, sort of what they use at athletic fields, but there are health concerns with that. There's the rubberized matting, but that is incredibly expensive. It doesn't do well with the temperature shifts we have in our environment. It wants to expand and contract, and these temperature changes, it's just very hard. And again, I'm looking at minimal, easy maintenance, right, minimal costs in the future. Dumping wood chips and my guys get out there and spread them out is, far cheaper than every 5 years tearing up this rubber and replacing it.
Go ahead.
So guys, when I read the site plans, on the left of the playground, like all the way left-hand side, what is that? The gray?
It's a basketball court.
Is it the basketball court?
It's a
Okay.
basketball court with also just open paved area, so we can
Okay.
have foursquare, hopscotch, right? Play that's not directed by the equipment that's there. These kids make up their own games, and that's, self-directed play.
That's big enough for a basketball court and?
Well, it's not a full, it's a half court.
But even now it's a half court and it's barely,
No, we're extending it further out.
towards the parking lot?
Yeah, to make more space there. What we've discovered is the preschool kids will be in the preschool playground. The younger grades want to be on the equipment. The older grades want to run wild and make up their own games. And right now, they don't have appreciable space to do that.
Won't we have, are we gonna have a retaining wall there? Doesn't it slope upwards a bit towards the
No, it's
road?
we can extend
Yeah.
it and have it be, believe me, we've had engineers and architects.
Yeah.
This has been,
Yeah, I'm trying to think back my kid on a tricycle riding around in there, and I'm like, oh. And then what about the fencing? I know when I talked to Sean a long time ago, he talked about maybe if we could move the fencing out to catch that bigger grassy area.
well, the bigger grasser area is really considered an athletic field there. It's more of a gym field than part of the playground. One thing I am working very hard on is getting at least a hose bib out between the playground, because right now it's dirt and chickweed. There is not a blade of grass on that entire field. We couldn't justify irrigating it, but I can at least get that out, and we can drag garden hose, and sprinklers and try to get something to grow there. But the athletic field is used for gym classes, and we also have recess going at the same time. We need to keep those separate.
Gotcha.
So there will be fencing around the preschool playground because that's required, but the rest of the playground will be wide open for kids to.
Oh, okay, that's
Do their
it's hard
thing.
to see the site plan, but that's the kind of dotted line around the portion near the cemetery,
Yeah.
or the marker, whatever it technically is there now. Okay, cool, great. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You guys take it easy. Thank you very much.
I would like to say, Dave, you are on top of so many projects, and you do it so professionally and so quietly, and things are just moving along, and so thank you for the work.
Thank you. I can't tell you how appreciative I'm of this job. I get up in the morning thinking, I'm going to make this school a better place every day, and I really do enjoy it.
Well, you're
So,
doing a
thank you.
great job.
Wish we could clone you.
All right, and the next presentation, Patty, of staff curriculum, summer staff curriculum, and mentoring program update.
Hi, everyone. So I'll start by just keeping this hot off the press. I told you about the Induction Through Mentoring program that's been implemented in the district, and so I have restructured it for starting for next school year. I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
First.
Thank you.
So this has been a passion project of mine. You know, both Todd and I made such a conscious effort when we started to say we weren't going to change anything. We wanted to support, you know, the current implementations of initiatives and programs and just really support everybody, but obviously make observations. And so working with the new mentor teachers, or the mentee teachers this year, also, it's a little twofold, or threefold actually. I serve on a state leadership team. It's one of our goals, is developing a mentor program for the state of New Hampshire. And then I'm also finishing up my EDS degree, and this is my field project. So I've done all the research and the evidence that supports this program. So I'm really excited about implementing it. I've also shared it with the year 1-2 mentees and the year 3-4 mentees for their feedback. I've also received feedback from my colleagues on the state leadership team, in addition to Todd and Sean Pine and Andy Corman, Erica McNeil. And so with that feedback, it's been pretty positive feedback. It's actually very positive, and some little tweaks that I've made from the feedback that I have received. So to kind of take you through, it outlines the roles and the responsibilities of the mentor, the mentee, and the administrator for the school. And I'm going to kind of jump ahead. Probably some newer changes and or additions is jumping to page 11, which I show in a model. Oh, I'm going to just, the very beginning on page 3, there is an acknowledgement page, and that's my evidence, my research, colleagues throughout the country that I've met and spoken to in Arizona and Utah and Mississippi, folks from the Office of U.S. Department of Education that really helped inform this mentor-mentee program. So that acknowledgement page is there. But now I'm going to jump to page 11, which first starts with the coaching cycle. And this model is below that you see there. It's taken from actually Utah State Board of Education, where they really talk about the pre-partnerships, which is really establishing that relationship between the mentor and the mentee, because that is key to the success of any new employee in a district. And then from there, the cycle moves where they will work together, they'll collaborate, they'll plan, they'll implement plans that they make, there'll be observations from the mentor to the mentee, reflections after those observations, follow-up conversations, and the cycle just continues. On page 12 is really where it gets exciting. So I think so anyway. So I guess what I was grappling with, and I said, it's like when you're a classroom teacher and somebody gives you their unit and they're so excited to share their unit and you're excited to get it, and then you start teaching it and it's somebody else's and you're like, well, I like this and I like that, but I think I'll tweak it here and there. And I feel like that's kind of how it started with the mentor-mentee program. So this is a big tweak here, but this is grounded in evidence and research. So what I'm referring to are high leverage practices. And what's different in the structure that I've added in the program is that a new teacher will look at those, Newmarket has 5 high leverage practices. There are actually 22, and they're best practices for teaching and learning. And so Newmarket has taken on 5 of those practices. And new teachers will select one of those practices to focus on. And that mentor will help support that new teacher with implementing that best practice in the classroom, or that high leverage practice. Where it becomes differentiated is that a new teacher might select the practice of creating an environment in their classroom with structure and routines and procedures. That's really hard for a first-year teacher. It's the overall classroom management, those routines and procedures, and I could very much see a first-year teacher out of a service program saying, I think I'm going to focus on this one all year. And that would be very appropriate. It would be really appropriate for a teacher to say, just want to get those routines established in my classroom and get feedback to help support me along the way. Another teacher might go through maybe 2 high leverage practices. And the great part about it is that they can select and choose, and then we have support there. So what page 12 outlines is what we call that coaching cycle. So in a teacher in year 1, they'll have 3 coaching cycles in the year. And this is in addition to their mentor helping them get out into other classrooms to observe other teachers so that they can reflect on practices that they're seeing. And then you can see in year 2, and then year 1, and then that last year, we really like to leave it up to the 4th year teacher of where they are with their mentor and mentee. But when you turn the page, now you get to see these high leverage practices. So like I said, these are practices that all teachers should know how to do. And that these practices are evidence-based. They're meaning that they reflect effective methods and that when successfully implemented can improve results for each learner. I like the bottom box on the right really sums it up. As a teacher, why do I want to use these high leverage practices? Teachers who learn and master these practices are better prepared to engage in the types of instructional practices and professional collaborations that are necessary for effectively educating students. Teachers who implement high leverage practices improve instruction that results in better learning for students. And why would we not want that for our kids in Newmarket? And so you can see on the left are the 5 instructional practices, from analyzing data, using strategies in the classroom to promote active student engagement, to systematically designing instruction so all students know what the learning target is and the success criteria for that target. How do teachers provide positive and constructive feedback to help students guide in their learning and behavior? And then lastly, establishing that consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment. On the next pages really goes into the detail of what each of those practices are, so that when the mentor and the mentee reads this, they really have a deep sense of what they look like. I think one of the best parts about this are the next pages, which are the actual checklists, the observation checklists. I feel like what we were lacking in our current mentor-mentee program is that structure to support the mentor and the mentee. Yes, I'm going to be in a coaching cycle, I'm going to go in, but what am I going to focus on? What am I looking at? And whose criteria am I using to look for these instructional practices? So this outlines it from pages 16 to, I think, 23. For each high leverage practice, so it's the green one, for each high leverage practice, there is an observation checklist. And what's wonderful is that we're not keeping this a secret. We're sharing it with the first year teacher. These are the look-fors. When we're in a classroom, we're going to be focusing on this high leverage practice. This is what we're looking for. And we're also really careful to say to a teacher, please know that we don't expect to see all of these indicators in one lesson. We might see maybe a missed opportunity, and we can talk about that, but certainly a teacher shouldn't feel like they have to do absolutely everything. What I also loved about this checklist is on the right, it gives an example of, okay, here's what it's going to look like in the classroom, but then it gives a non-example, meaning this type of instructional practice doesn't support this high leverage practice. And I think that's what teachers need to see. What does it look like, but what should it not look like? And so it's very thorough. And I love for number 5, which is the establishing that community in the classroom, there are 3 pages of indicators. So that's a big high leverage practice. And I just remember myself as a first year teacher, you're just so overwhelmed and you're so excited and you're coming right out of college and you just can't wait, and then you're like, oh, I don't know anything. I need help. So to have things and support for a new teacher. And today I was with the year 1, 2 teachers at the elementary school. And a couple of them are year 1 teachers. And they were like, oh, I can't wait to do this next year. This is so great. I'm going to pick this one. And they're really excited about continuing on and having a little bit more structure behind us. And then after these pages, I'm just showing you like the logs that the teachers will fill out. I referred to on page 26 Because we want our new teachers to know about professional learning, and what does that include? Because when you come right out of college or graduate school, you may not know what the district, how are they going to support you in your learning? And so I kind of spell that out there. And then we talk about the focus sessions. So the focus sessions will be different next year. This year they were lumped together with 1 and 2 year teachers were together in 3, 4. And I feel like each year of a teacher should have their own focus session, and it should come right after their coaching cycle. So then we can talk about how did that go, how can I help support them as well. So that will change too. And then on page 27, this is like the gift that keeps on giving, I feel, because when I'll create a binder for each of the mentors and the mentees, but I'm also going to send this to them in a PDF document so they can access these resources. These are wonderful for veteran teachers. So then I'm also going to push it out to the whole staff for elementary, middle, and high school, because they have a staff page where I can link it. I've already talked to Debbie Jankowski, where I'm going to link this right for the staff. Because those 5 high leverage practices, these are the resources to support them. So whether it's for classroom management, communicating with parents, some exemplars or templates, it's the gift that keeps giving. And then on the other page, resources for staff for their own self-care. So I have some really great links in there for themselves to take care of themselves, and some great links as well about why it's so important to establish trust. And then the collaboration piece is just great to me. It's that tried and true template. When you're collaborating with your colleagues, it's do 4 questions. I'm sure you know that one, Andrew. When we're looking at data, what do we want all of our students to know and be able to do? How will we know if students have mastered standards of focus? How will we, respond for students who aren't there yet, who haven't learned them? And then how will we respond to students who have already demonstrated mastery? So those are kind of like it's just a great collaborative tool for teachers to use. And then the very last page is evaluation. And that's me looking for feedback. I'm evaluating me. Or the mentors and the mentees and the administrators are going to evaluate this program so I can get feedback. I'm still a learner as well. And I know Todd and I are really trying to promote that we're all learners. Where our students are learners, but our faculty, we're all learners, and we're all in a continuous cycle. And so I feel like this mentor-mentee program should be a living document or a living program, meaning that when I get evaluations, so I've created questions for administrators, mentors, and mentees that I'll push out at the end of next year. Their feedback will help inform me what little tweaks do I need to make so that everyone still really feels supported. Because you don't know it until you start to do it. So that's the program. I don't know if there's any questions there.
How was your presentation earlier in the year?
You went to San Francisco.
Oh yeah, for San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's
So long ago.
because I went to San Francisco. I had a completely different idea, and I learned so much from the states who are in here. Also Connecticut too. I just didn't, I wasn't modeling too much from Connecticut, but I learned a lot. Their Department of Education has an amazing website, but anyway. But because of what I learned in San Francisco, I write this in my research paper that I wrote, it completely reshaped my thinking of how I'm supposed to structure a program. And honestly, it was the 5 HLPs. I attended Utah's session, and then after that, I spoke to one of the department heads for Utah. I just say New Hampshire's we're a small state, right? And the way we structure our education, it's very different than those big states like Mississippi and Utah and Arizona. And what I mean by that is their state boards of education, they're the ones who create this, and then they push it out to the schools. Me serving on that state leadership, New Hampshire Educated for Effectiveness, we're the ones that are going to create this. And none of us are getting paid. We're not looking for money because this is our joy. When we get to create something and make a difference in a school, we're doing it because we love the people who facilitate this group, Elaine McNulty and Tim and Dove, and we'll work so hard for them. And then we'll work hard for our colleagues around the state of how we can share. So for example, I had my Southeasters curriculum meeting, and we all go around and share things, and I was so excited about the mentoring, and Dave Hobb said, well, you sent it to us? I said, absolutely, that's what it's for. That's, as colleagues, that's what we do. We share our work, and we get excited when we create something. We get excited when we get that feedback from colleagues in another district. What I learned is that in the big states, they create it, they push it out, and then districts actually get paid. They pay, the state pays the district to pay their teachers, mentors, mentees, and they said to me, how do you do it? And I said, I write grants in Title II, and those Title II funds is what is giving the stipend to the mentor and the mentee. That's what we do in New Hampshire. We're crafty, and they're like, oh, that's terrible. It's okay. But it's so exciting to go to a national conference, to talk to other educators around the country, and hear their stories and just hear how they structure, and you learn so much. And huge learning are the high leverage practices. And I said to Utah, why those 5? And she said, because when we looked at them, some of the other high leverage practices support. She goes, these are the foundational ones, and this is where you want to start. So, I mean, I see down the road of like, okay, I'd take a few more high leverage practices. You can add on to it, so there's certainly room for growth.
Yeah, so I'll leave aside the state versus live free or die local control, and not a state, don't have an income tax or sales tax, so there's not money. But anyway,
We're little.
So my question was about the HLPs.
Yeah.
Like, would we consider at any point, based on the needs of the district, saying, oh, those 5 were good now, but like we've evolved and we might have other
There are
HLPs.
22 of them.
Right. So that, like there might be other ones at other
Yeah.
times that are like. So I love the living document concept.
Yes.
And I should
Yeah.
just preface this all. This is awesome. This is great.
Oh, thanks.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And like I think this level of structure but flexibility, I think, is like a great balance between those two. Is going to be really useful for mentors and mentees. My only other question is on program evaluation. So if the intent of this is to, I suppose, increase time to proficiency or decrease time to proficiency, right, and reduce turnover, because you said
Retention and turnover. Yeah, and it's 4 years, so that the goal is that you would stay
we
here.
want to consider like looking at retention like people who went through this versus didn't go through this? Because while the surveys are great, like a proof to me is in the pudding of like, hey, is this actually retaining?
I think that's a great idea. Absolutely. I think that is absolutely data that we can take from the 23-24 school year when this is implemented. You do a 5-year study or a 3-year study even, and where are we?
Yeah.
Because the feedback that the mentors, mentees, and administrators are giving me are related right to the program itself.
Right.
How it's working for them and how I can make tweaks more. But
Super
yours is
valuable.
more of a study for retention.
Of the
Absolutely,
program, right?
we
If
should.
the program's
Yeah.
outcomes retention, like let's measure retention. It's
Yeah.
a good opportunity to get both the participant data as
Yeah.
well as like the impact.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I guess I love the way that this is structured in sort of a rubric format with a lot of very specific things, and in particular, I love the good example, bad example, laid out in each one has got to be really helpful. So gushing aside, I guess my question is, there's an obvious progression in here. There's an obvious sort of evaluation. As a baseline, have we thought about doing any work as to where we think we stand right now before we implement this so that we can get a sense of how much of an impact it's having after we put it in?
I don't know if I'm understanding your question. So after we implement this particular program?
Well, so we haven't implemented this yet, correct?
No, we haven't, not to
Okay.
this degree of structure, no.
So is any, I'm just curious, if you think of this as a rubric, where do we think we are right now?
Oh.
So that as we then implement
Very
it.
beginning stages. If we're benchmarking ourselves, I would say we're at very beginning stages because Todd spoke earlier that we've developed a committee and we're going to be developing a profile of a Newmarket educator. What are the knowledge, skills, and dispositions of an educator in Newmarket? Once you create that, then it's okay. How do we create these professional growth plans that support the knowledge, skills, and dispositions of an educator? Are there some of these high leverage practices, instructional practices, that we might want to tie in to that. I don't know. We're going to have a committee of people, but to be mindful of, there's a lot of evaluation tools out there. We currently use the Danielson method, and it was the tried and true method of evaluating staff. But research will tell you, and the evidence is out there with the Charlotte Danielson method, is, and again, I've been observed using that method, it doesn't allow for reflection for staff. And I just remember myself as a veteran teacher and Todd probably the same thing. The principal would come in and observe, great job, Patty, great job. And I'm like, well, what was great? Can you tell me? How can I, come on, I'm not perfect, but what more can I do? And sometimes evaluation tools out there, they don't allow for that. Where we want to get to is reflection and feedback. And feedback is how you grow. And it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to not know anything, and it's okay to have an epic fail. Like, we have to be okay with that, because we tell that to our kids, right? Their epic fails are their epic learnings. That's how they learn, right? And so for teachers too, but it's through observation and feedback, and it's through that conversation rather than writing up this huge docket and then ticking proficient, or that doesn't help. That doesn't help a teacher grow. And so that's really, I don't know if there's a tool out there that will be good enough from Newmarket. We might say, you know what, we're going to write our own. This is what we're going to do for our professional growth plan. And I don't know, we're a committee of people, so it would be a joint decision, but I'm kind of excited.
One of the things that I think about with this is currently 60% of the staff at the high school is within the first 5 years.
Yes.
Bingo.
About
Yep.
30% of the elementary staff is in the first 5 years. And all of them will have mentors. And you think about the number of educators are going to be engaged in this work over the next year, it has the capacity to be very transformative, to just get us focused on the right conversations, the right things. But one of the things when you start talking about trying to build, a reflective culture, or
Right.
a culture that values excellence, it takes time to let that simmer and identify what those things are. And then once you identify them, then
Right.
you can focus on like the evaluation tool, because one of the things that I struggle with is evaluation tools. Yes, there is a hiring and firing sort of component to it, but that's really 99.9% of the time it's about growth. It's about how do you figure out what's going to work and make
Right.
change to be better. And I think this model really that's what it's about. And if it ends up being reflected in our teacher evaluation tool, that's great.
Yep.
But nonetheless, it's going to have an impact on
It's going to
the
have,
conversation.
it absolutely is.
Yeah.
And we went back to that, the coaching cycle model is about that relationship of trust with the mentor and the mentee, because those observation checklists, they do not go to the principal. That is strictly between the teacher, the mentor, and the mentee. Because that's the safety net that you have to have in place for a new teacher to be honest and to know that their conversations are confidential, and that mentor is there to support that mentee.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that, and I appreciate it, and I think you're right. This isn't something you're going to measure over a 6-month
No.
time frame. This is but at the same time, you do have to have some objective or subjective sense of, are we moving in the right direction? And I'd quibble with you just a little bit in that, I mean, yes, it's okay to have an epic fail in the sense of, I came up with this novel approach to what I want to do in class today, and I went in and all the kids just gave me a blank stare,
And you
and
changed
it
the
didn't
next
work.
day.
Okay, fine, epic
Yeah.
fail, but you quickly move on to
Right.
something else. It's not okay to have an epic fail in the sense that you come out of a quarter and realize the kids didn't learn a damn
Oh,
thing.
absolutely,
So-
absolutely. I'm not talking
Yes.
about the end of the quarter. It's, maybe one lesson, the way you introduced it, or the kids take a summative and you realize that they didn't do well. Well, if most of the kids didn't do well, it's really not on the kids. It's on, okay, they weren't prepared enough. We have to go back to the teaching and learning. Where did we miss the mark? And we have to reteach that.
I have found that organizations that are charged with providing learning tend to have the least learning cultures for their staff and faculty, right? So you can be an organization of learning but not have a learning culture. This is a learning culture.
Yes.
This is like, how are we being reflective and growing
Yes.
to ultimately serve our learners better?
Yeah.
And
And holding ourselves accountable.
the idea of a vision of a graduate tied into a vision of an educator, tied into this, tied into ultimately culture
Evaluation
lives in our
model.
systems and processes.
Yeah.
Like this, like performance performance management.
Yeah.
If we don't address those to be like
Yeah.
the work you're doing here, which is like in alignment with that growth learning mindset, we'll never
Right.
change the actual.
Yeah, and
The other thing, I just want to jump in, one of the things I really like about the way it's structured is the rubric to, it's basically criterion to observe, they're like yes or no, observe.
Yeah.
And I think it takes away the judgment, it's like, did you see it or not? And I think, like with our vision of a graduate work, I hope that what we're going to get to is a place where there are observable things that people should expect to see, that when you walk through our school, you either see them or you don't. And you can have a conversation about that. So I really think it's less about this evaluative conversation and more
Right.
about observable things that you should expect to see. If we have a culture that's really doing what we say it is,
Yeah.
what are the kinds of things you're going to observe as you
Yeah.
walk to our school? And any person should be able to say, yeah, I saw that. And I think that's the challenge of identifying what all those things are and then just
Yeah.
getting on the same page.
And this is transforming a culture. It really, this is transformative, because I feel it's new for Newmarket. The vision of the graduate, portrait of an educator, a different looking program, a new evaluation tool, this is transformative, which is exciting.
We probably, sorry to interrupt, we
But-
probably should move along. We
Yeah.
we could probably talk about this all night.
I would love
but
to
it's
talk
been,
about this more. I really
Can I ask, I'm sorry, can I ask, real quick. First, my biggest fear out of this is other people are getting wind out of this, and you're gonna get the big bucks in education and start traveling around and selling their
no.
ideas, so that's my fear. No, this is awesome. Can I ask you, how does this tie into the self-reflection and the goal setting and the actual evaluation process?
How will this tie into it?
Yeah.
There is no tie-in right now. Right now, this is a separate program for mentors and mentees. Right now, we are just developing a teacher evaluation committee.
Okay.
And made up of teachers, and we have some facilitators from Demonstrated Success that are help pushing our thinking a little bit with that. So our first meeting is May 16th, which is really just a planning meeting, because before we can talk about a teacher evaluation tool, we
Yeah.
have to develop the portrait of an educator first.
Okay.
So that work is first, and then once we start with, okay, now we develop this, now we can talk, now we can work toward what is going to be the evaluation tool, and then that's where the parents will come to the board and join our committee.
But if I chose the one, the high leverage practice to work on, would that also be my annual goal that's required? With the
It could be.
Okay.
It absolutely could be. And I think, we need to open it up like that for new teachers. That absolutely could be their goal.
Okay, thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I know you're trying to move us along. I just want one thing you said.
I'm trying.
I'm really sorry.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
Love, right?
And it's really good material.
Your frame of summative assessment is probably one of the best frames I've ever heard of it, because it levels the playing field between learner and teacher, and that too often it could be like, oh, they're not learning, right? As opposed to oh wait, the whole class didn't do well in the summative assessment. What am I going to learn from that about my approach to teaching? And it levels that, everyone's a learner in that room, teacher included.
Yeah, and quite honestly, at the formative assessment, as a teacher,
So
at
I
the
meant-
formative,
that's what I meant.
at the formative, that's when you're saying, the kids are not ready for the summative on Friday. I've got to, I have this data, the kids are telling me that they're not, I can see in the exit ticket or whatever I'm using to collect that, to determine they are not ready, and that's okay. We have to give teachers permission. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's more important to teach the skills and the concepts, and when the kids are ready, then give them the summative. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, we are going to move along. Thank you so much. Your passion
Thank you,
is
Patty.
evident and appreciated, and all the work you've done. Moving right along, do we have any correspondence?
I do not know.
I do not either. Anyone else have any? No? Okay, great. We have a tentative, agenda for the school board retreat in your packet. If everyone would like to take a quick peek at it. In an effort to let some of the administration get out a little earlier in the day than the rest of us, Todd's front-loaded some of the activities. I think they actually tie in well to the overall goal of the retreat, but they've been front-loaded a little bit so we can get some of those folks out who have been working all week. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I just tried to structure the day around, sort of like the morning is like a state of the school district report, talking about where we're at and what we perceive as being the things we need to work on. And that's where I've invited the leadership team to be there just to have some conversation with you, similar to what we did last time. Then we'll take a break and then we'll shift the focus to goal setting, and that's where Patty and I will just sort of lead you through a conversation on that. One of the things we hoped to do would be to try to align district goals, board goals, superintendent goals, teacher goals, kind of think about how that all fits together. So as we're setting these goals, we're thinking that way. And then after lunch, really diving into some of the nuts and boltsy type topics that the board, in terms of just improved efficiency, the kind of things you want to kind of take a look at, with the idea that obviously you can't set goals in a workshop, so we would just have ideas, and then that would come back to you later on. So that was kind of the idea behind this.
Anyone have any thoughts, discussions?
So the objective of the day is to come up with potential goals for the board,
So that the next
meeting can, perfect. I just want to know what the outcome.
Yes, hopefully you will walk away with a good sense of where we're at as a district, a good sense of what goals the district is focused on, but also then how the board goals intersect with those, and then just some conversations that are ongoing that we've had about just improving the overall process of meetings and other things. And again, that afternoon, those agenda items were just things Patty and I came up with, but clearly they can become anything you want them to be.
Any thoughts? No? Excellent. We do have an update on staff snow day makeup plan from
Yeah, so
Todd.
basically I've met with both unions, and one of the things that we have talked about, obviously we have Juneteenth, this is the last week of school. Juneteenth is Monday, that is a holiday, so we're not having school that day. But by doing that, if we stick to calendar days, the last day for staff would be Monday the 26th. And I would have to say the one request from staff, is there any way to make one of the days more flexible so that we don't have to extend our work year into the following week? And actually, as a leadership team, we spent some time talking about creating a virtual training day that people can do whenever they want. If they want to do it on Juneteenth, they can do it then. If they want to do it on Monday the 26th, they can do it then. If they want to do it on a beach in Agunquit, they can do it then. But basically, we are putting together a bunch of trainings, adding up to about 6 hours worth of virtual training that are all required things that staff have to do prior to the start of school in the fall. So not only will it get us those trainings done, it will actually buy us another day in the fall when we bring people back, so we won't have to spend as much time on required trainings. So the idea is one virtual day which we will put together, and it is going to be very carefully monitored through, some of the trainings are through Primex, where you actually have to go through it and do the assessments, and you print a certificate. And all of them will be required to be entered into Frontline, which is our digital platform that we track professional development. And then the Thursday, Friday will be a fully in-person experience, and we actually have a lot of very practical, as you heard, some of the exciting things Patty was just talking about. There's a lot of very practical things that we're going to be working on. So we have very full 3 days. So that's basically my plan going forward. So I don't necessarily need you guys to vote on it, but I just wanted to see if does that work, make sense to you? Okay, great.
I mean, as long as none of the training requires a second person to be there on Juneteenth, for instance, who might want to take the day off, then yeah, I think that's fine. Also, Amy, your mic is, I don't know if it's out of battery or what's going on with it, but
Here you are. I have to spare.
Thank you.
The chair gets 2 mics.
stereo.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Next up, we have update on, or excuse me, not an update, a discussion about the summer hiring practices. Generally, we give the superintendent the authorization to hire on our behalf because we might not be able to have meetings as expeditiously as we'd like to lock in a candidate.
Can I just jump in? The reason why I'm asking for it now is that I actually would like to have authority to move more quickly. We actually, when we were doing the assistant principal hire at the elementary school, we had one candidate pull out before we could finish our process. So right now, some of our hirings it's very timely, and if I have to wait 2 weeks to offer somebody a job, we might lose people. So So it's, I guess what I've been
So,
looking for is
yeah,
starting now, so that
Gotcha.
on the idea that I will absolutely, the next available meeting, I will bring the names to you. You will be presented them and, for your knowledge. But it really, we're getting into, the hiring season is going to be tricky, particularly for some of the specialty areas. So we need to be able to move pretty fast.
Yeah, I reached out to Barrett.
Yeah,
Not about this, just 189, just the policy GCF general. I think RSA 189-39 is nonsense, because in the current, just in the current environment, like, unless we were meeting daily to approve things, like, the job market's just too fluid and unstable to, like, so I'm just trying to, it's less to do with this, I'm all about this, and more about, like, what can we do, and maybe it's a policy committee conversation to, like, codify something so it doesn't feel like we're just rubber stamping stuff up here, but that, like, we're also not getting, because he shared with me what some districts do, and I'm like, that is the board getting so deep into administrative work that, like, I'd be offended if an administrator is happening, right? I'm just trying to find, like, some way that we can, like, maybe codify in policy so it doesn't feel like we're just, like,
Yeah, it makes a lot of
ministerial.
sense, yeah.
But I 100% am about, like, there needs to be more flexibility in the.
I mean, to some extent, if we're voting to approve this every year, voting to approve a
Can you
variance
codify it
from
in policy
policy
or
every
something,
year,
or
then let's
like,
just
yeah,
change the
yeah.
policy.
Yeah, we don't do it generally for the whole year, but certainly it's worth
But
the
it's a pretty
discussion.
regular thing.
Yeah, it's happened a few times already, so, yeah.
After our last meeting, I went and read the RSA, and it is rather ambiguous exactly what
Yeah.
the process needs to be. So I think there's room for us to take a look at it and decide how we want it to be here.
And there's, like, the RSAs are so, no offense to our friends in Concord, sometimes sloppily written. That, like, unless you go back into, like, the debates about it, you don't even understand why they wanted the board in the nomination process in the first place. Jenna will know that. This says two separate, opposite things in the same sentence.
Yeah. Pretty much. The other thing we may want to start
It was a
discussing.
compromise.
It was a compromise, to say nothing. We may want to start discussing soon is if the board wants to change our schedule for the summer. In the past few years, we have reduced our meeting numbers for the summer, and I know Todd may be away for one meeting anyway, so we don't have to decide right now, but something we can let marvel around our brain for a while.
Can I ask a question, but slightly about the policy about the hiring?
Of course.
Feel free to scold me, this may not, but how is the applicants coming in for the assistant principal job at the middle school? Are you getting?
We were disappointed. We only got 39.
Oh my gosh, that was a dramatic reduction from
We
the
have set the
elementary
bar
school.
very high.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know, thank you. For once, no.
That's really exciting to hear. And then we will move on to the first reading of policy TFA, investments. The board, for those who,
Does it really need to be a first read? It could just be
a read, right, yeah.
because you have to
A
do
read
it
and prove
every
it,
year,
yeah.
so it's- Jana looked it over. There's no recommendations for change. You just have to put it in front of you and you
Yeah.
guys determine if you want to.
By statute, we have to
review it.
look at it each year. So, take a nice look at it. There it is.
And the policy committee did look at it.
It was a very rousing debate.
With that, we'll open the floor to public comment at 6:38 PM. And seeing no one, we will close the floor at 6:38 PM. And moving right along to action items. Seek a motion to approve policy DFA investments, as we just all read.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion from Dan, second by Andrew. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Sorry, Amy, okay. All right, we do have the March 2023 minutes. They've been revised. There was a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for, confusion or flip-flopping of the non-public portions and the public portions, so those have been rectified, so now we have the vote to go into non-public in the public minutes and the vote to leave non-public in the non-public minutes. So that was the revision on those two items. And then I did notice, an item on, well, we haven't actually reviewed the April 6th, had we? So, nope, so never mind. And then we also have the April 6th public and non-public minutes. I do have some corrections, but I can wait for that.
I have a lot of corrections.
We have a lot of corrections, we can wait for that.
Do
All
you
right.
want to vote on the March ones?
Do you want to do them separately? That's fine. March?
Just to approve them and get out of the way before the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
before we move
sure.
on to April.
I move to approve the March 23rd, 2023 revised public and non-public minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor from Phil and a second from Amy. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those pass. Do we want to do the revisions and approve them as amended, or do you want to, should we make a motion and then amend them?
Whatever you want to do.
I think you motion then amend them.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
the general.
All right.
So I'll make a motion to approve the April 6, 2023 public and non-public meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Phil. All right, discussion. Go. Go ahead, Amy, do you want to go first?
So on page, on the action items, she put roll call votes for each action item.
Well, that was mine. Okay, that's gone.
Typically do that.
Yep.
You don't need a roll call vote for that, for those.
Yeah, they weren't roll calls, so that was my catch. Thank you.
I just well, I think this is something I could probably discuss with Jean. There's just a lot of like format issues that I'm having trouble with that I don't think we need to officially change. I would just like to go over with her a few things if that's possible, because I find her very busy, and I just want to get rid of a couple things on them, that's all. But I also have some other changes that I have to,
Okay. Well, if they're not substantive changes to
well, that's what I.
the minutes
that's-
themselves, then that's
If someone
fine.
else
Talk
wants to go, because I just have to look at them again.
Yep, that's fine if you want to talk to her about maybe a presentation or a format that is
Yeah.
less,
I just wish you would follow the agenda as presented, rather than, like she's, with reports.
Okay.
I just wish you would highlight who the report is given by, just not reports, and then,
no, yeah, that's fine if
it's,
you want.
I mean, it's little things that,
Yeah,
it's
if there's,
nothing-
you just want to go over the items
Yeah.
that need to be corrected?
yeah. So under the titles, like reports, oh, I know, one other, let me just, something about the correspondence she did on, it was supposed to be under public comment.
Which,
Oh,
so these are the public
You know what,
minutes?
it was on the March one, sorry, she had put, remember Al Zink came and spoke
Mhm.
about the egress issue, she had put that under correspondence and should have been under public comment.
Well,
It was-
technically,
We had
it
a
was
correspondence.
it was,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, but he spoke too in public
Yeah.
comment, so it's two different things, but
Yeah.
I'm just getting nitty gritty here. It's-
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how we did that.
He actually
We might have actually invited him to talk
We
before.
we
public
invited him during
comment.
correspondence, because
Oh,
Todd said, oh,
okay.
he's here, do you want us to come up and talk now? I
Okay.
should have caught it and chastised Todd, but I didn't, I let it slip.
I created all
Jeez, Todd.
But what are their corrections, Amy?
Under, no, I'm getting really nitty gritty, like, she put under,
Just so we're on April,
yes,
April
under
public?
reports, under
Okay.
athletics, it should say PCA, not Portsmouth, because we don't play Portsmouth. Under the softball games,
okay,
she's played that softball is playing Portsmouth and
Gotcha.
baseball team, so that should be PCA on both those.
Mhm.
I'm getting really nitty gritty here, so I'm
It's all
sorry,
right.
Jean.
And those sound like fairly friendly amendments. On
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yes.
fine.
Yeah, I can just do these. I'll just talk to Jean, like, because it's nothing that is really crucial.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So other than the fact there was no roll call votes under the action
Yeah, that
items,
definitely needs to be changed.
yep. Do you have anything else that's,
No, I'll talk to her.
okay, great. All right, so we already have motion and second discussion. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those Pass 5-0. Manifest, do we have any manifest?
I move to approve the manifest in total of $754,014.06.
Second. Oh,
Go for it.
no, after you.
Oh, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Actually, for Gene's sake, Phil Nazaro made the motion. Andrew Hamaker seconded it. All right, we have an RFP award recommendation. Jana, would you like to come up and speak to that? Or would you be willing to?
If possible, I'd like to ask Dave up here too, so we're gonna kind of tag team this. This is a very non-conventional recommendation that we're making to the board here, so I just wanted to give you some context for that. We were awarded $100,000 from the SAFE grant to work on making enhancements to an integrated security system. At the time, we currently share a system with the town, and we have very different security needs in the schools than they do in the town facilities. For example, one of the big things, just an example, while it would not be impossible, I would say that most town employees typically don't open a door and run screaming into the street, but we do sometimes have kids that will open a classroom door and go, and we want to make sure that we have alarms that the minute that door opens, somebody knows it, somebody's right there. We also have more human beings in our buildings, so lots of more exposure, a lot more things to monitor. So we knew that we had some very different security needs, not to say that a security system can't address both, but ours does not in the way that we had hoped. So as we started this process, if you remember, we were really methodical about this. We first did an RFQ to qualify people vendors before we even put together a proposal. Then we had those qualified vendors come in and present to us their options. They did a demo. They actually showed the systems and what they're capable of. They showed us a live version of what it could be, how it would be integrated. And after we went through that process, we realized that we didn't necessarily need to separate from the town. The reason we had asked for $100,000 is because we weren't sure we could accomplish what we wanted to and stay on the same system. But after the demos, Dave Riley and Jason Carey and Todd and Karen from the town watched, and we think that there is a way that we can continue to use some of the platforms and the systems that we have with enhancements to be able to keep that joint system with the town. So at that point, we started thinking about, of course, we'd asked for a proposal for a standalone system. That's not really what we're looking for now. What we really would like to do is go back and take what we have choose a vendor that can help us find the optimum way to accomplish what we want and make sure the town's needs are taken care of. And we think we can do it for a much more cost-effective solution that will be optimal. So what we're asking you to do today is actually we had 3 bids. 2 came in before the deadline. 1 was an alternate bid. We're going to ask the board to reject all bids. And then what we would like to do is proceed underneath board policy DJE, which are bid policy under exception 4, which allows us to individually, in a joint solution with the town, when we are joined with another local government, which we are, to work towards a solution without having to go through that bid process. So that's the long way around the barn about saying we checked out our options. We think we'd like to go in a direction that's a little bit more collaborative with the town. And so by rejecting all 3 of these bids, that will allow us to negotiate and get a vendor and pick a vendor and then really work through the system and make sure that's exactly what we want.
I'll make that motion.
Makes sense to me.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, second.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to reject all bids from the RFP by Mr. Nazaro and a second by Mr. Smith.
So this is the vote to reject, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And
So
just to
rarely
be-
people
just to
come
be
asking
clear-
us to reject stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And just to be clear, we won't be bringing back a proposal for you to vote on because the policy, if we work this way, does not require us to bring that solution to you. So we'll certainly let you know what it is, but we're not going to be bringing it here for a vote.
Excellent. Any more discussion on rejections? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 You've been rejected. Excuse me, the motion passes.
Might be a little presumptive to say nobody ever runs screaming out of this building.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to.
When tax bills come out.
I'd seek a motion to authorize Superintendent Allen, well, actually, I guess we're waiving, right? I'd seek a motion to waive policy GCF and GDF and allow Superintendent Allen to hire applicants throughout the summer. Shall we say till August or? Starting now, starting tonight.
Through August.
Through the end of August.
31. Yeah. So moved.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
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 We have a exciting and generous donation from, looks like Service Credit Union and UNH. We congrats out to the Newmarket Girls Track Team for winning the 2023 Women in Sports Sweepstakes. They have a $10,000 big check coming to them.
And
10 or
told that
2?
tomorrow they will be at the pep rally, so you want to see it, one of those giant checks.
$2,000.
10,000 or 2,000?
2,000.
Did I say
2,000.
10,000?
Yes.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Wishful thinking.
$2,000.
When you
Yes.
said big check, I was just like, 10,000 is a big check.
Oh my gosh, I am sorry.
Yeah.
Wow, sorry,
Literally.
I don't know how I got that. All right,
Does that money stay with the team then, or does it go?
it's
into
for the
general
program,
fund?
it's specifically the program.
I
Yeah.
mean, as Lola reported, we have some very successful athletes that do things like go to national championships and stuff like
Oh,
that, so
okay.
it will support their ability to do this.
Did I suck? That I was seeking motion, no? Did I not?
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Second.
I second.
Man, he turns into a pumpkin around 6:45.
Yeah, pretty much. Any discussion on the donation? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
As the board probably recalls, we need to approve any field trips that are outside the state of New Hampshire, and it looks like we have 2 exciting field trips coming up for grade 3 and grade 2. One going to Mount Agamenicus and one going to York's Wild Kingdom. Seek a motion to approve those field
So
trips.
moved.
Second.
Amy Tilton, Phil Nazaro. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we do have 3 or 4 personnel matters that we
Yes.
need to review or approve.
Yeah, so basically, we have 3 new staff positions, obviously tonight. We've got Jessica Spalding, nominated for the assistant principal at the elementary school. We have 2 special ed case managers, Kelly Graham and Catherine Toole, case management positions at the elementary school. And then you also see before you, last meeting you approved all of the professional staff that were within the collective bargaining unit. The 4 names, I don't know why his name isn't there, Bob
Yeah.
Higgins should be there.
Yeah.
But the 4 nominees who are professional staff positions, but they're not in the collective bargaining unit, so approving them. So Deb Jankowski, Bob Higgins, Kate Skinner, and Laura Youngberg, the 2 social workers. And then we have 1 resignation from Matt Campagna, the ESOL teacher. And then there are 3 spring volunteer coaches that generally you'd like to be made aware of, Kevin Fluette, Donovan Harrigan, and Billy Mulligan.
Which sports
I think it's
are
Kevin Fluent, isn't it?
Baseball.
fluid? Fluid, I think. actually.
Is it? Fluent?
It should be.
Alright.
Kevin Fluid does baseball, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
that's the look though.
There's an N, isn't there? Fluent?
What?
Isn't there an N in his name?
No, I don't
No?
think so.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think so.
I'm going to have to say I can't speak with authority to which sports they are. I would have to ask, I can bring it back to you next
Yeah,
time
it's
if you'd like.
And Fluid's
Baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also have the staff. I don't know. Did you mention Jessica? At the start. You
Yep.
did, yeah.
Everything that's on this memo I just ran through.
Can I ask,
Go ahead.
Thank you for the nomination forms.
Mm.
They were like having it organized like this, everyone the same, made it really interesting and easier for me to understand it. So thank you for that. Can I ask a question? Is it standard practice to list the people that are interviewed but not offer the job?
Meaning numbers?
So
Did we
there is an
do that?
option there that says other candidates interviewed.
Oh, gosh. Probably not.
Oh, boy, yeah, that probably shouldn't.
Yeah, that should have been redacted.
Yep, that should be redacted.
Yeah.
Good.
It's on, I'll show you after.
It's on the nomination form. Like, I like the
Yeah.
nomination form.
Oh,
I like
yeah.
that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, point well taken, that is not standard practice now.
Okay.
That was an oversight.
Oh, thank you.
All right, seek a motion to approve those hirings and accept the resignation as presented tonight.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Phil and a second from Dan. All those, any discussion?
Real quick, thank you to all of the volunteers who are stepping up to coach. It
Yeah, absolutely.
much appreciated.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. With that, do we have a non-public? Did we discuss it? And I can't recall.
Ask real quick, next meeting, is it possible to kind of get moving again with the superintendent? Renewal, the survey, I think you and.
Oh, my
Yeah,
gosh.
Questions?
Yeah, that is not, you're right, we did, we did mean to bring that up. Yeah, that's a great point. We can certainly add it now, if you think time is.
I don't want to
of,
speak out of turn, I just want to make sure that we are moving forward with everything. So I'm okay waiting next meeting, I just want
Yeah.
to make sure that we're moving this forward.
20th, yeah, the timing's not great if we wait, but yeah, we probably can, I think.
I mean, people are going to be gone next week anyway, so.
Well, no, yeah, I don't think we'd send the survey out
Yeah.
now, but we'd have to do the survey and then plan the other event, so.
I mean, have you guys been able to write this out, the questions?
I wrote out some questions, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're close.
Okay.
We're just, I mean, mainly just to try to be consistent with what I think we talked about last time. We're trying to find the way to make it as concise and functional as, so we can try to get the best response rate that we can get.
You know, when I was doing some research the past week, I was getting really heavily involved in how to write out a survey. And then I just had to take a step back and I said, we need to make it just really easy and simple, short and sweet. I think I was getting too much into research and looking things up, so I sent some sample questions to Gary and Dan, and we've talked a few times, but I personally think it needs to be very short, and I just don't want to, I think I was initially putting too much into these questions, you know, like, so.
Great. So maybe the next meeting we can have those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you think too that maybe if we're gonna do the Q&A with the public app, that maybe Todd comes up with dates that he could present to us?
Sure.
Just so like we're in May
Yeah.
already.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
So.
When we were gonna do the Q&A, did we say
We haven't
we
decided
didn't
on a date.
decide that yet, right?
Other than before the end of the school.
Right,
Actually,
that's coming up soon.
One of the staff members at the high school put out a calendar of all the events that are coming up in May and June. And I think there are 2 or 3 days in May that don't already have something scheduled on them, so we
Yeah.
probably need to jump on it.
And that's my fear too, because especially like we have graduation, and after graduation, people start leaving for the summer.
Yeah.
So I still wanna, yeah, so.
Great, yeah, thank you. We'll definitely add that to the next agenda. And did we have a non-public? Okay, great. Does anyone have anything they want to discuss in non-public? All right. With that, 1 minute to go. Seek a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right, folks, thank you. 5-0. Can I have the manifests, please? Thank you, too. Thank you for staying.
I think I signed that already.
Oh, thank you. I mean, as long as there's two, it doesn't matter, but you're welcome to, obviously.